Mr. Watts, he is armed himself. Shots. Shots. Watch it. Tear gas. Live rounds. Also, I can see that.
Just for Quendon!
That man is a boxer, man. I like to put in the boxer, man, to do that. But I just since my cousin there, no, you come on the East Coast.
You listen to me.
Right? No, you come on the East Coast.
You listen to me now.
You gotta listen to me too, man.
I am listening to
Right?
you.
Now, I see you on the East Coast. The day when they get a protest of them, the next day, that's when you see one bigger heads come up to talk to my family. Right? And that's bad. If we didn't do a protest, you want to see nobody for justice. You see? I'm not holding back nothing. I'm not holding back nothing. I just need justice of my family.
With the West Indian politician, I mean you went to big institution, and how come you can't unite 7 million? When a West Indian unity, I know it's very easy. If you only rap to your people and tell them like which them is one race, from the same place, that make the same trip, on the same ship. So we must push one common intention, it's for a better life in the region, for the woman and the children. That must be the ambition of the Caribbean and the Caribbean and the Caribbean. They say that the Federation was imported white from England, and you're going and form a character with a true West Indian flavor. But it's now it's just started running, morning, noon, and night, all I hearing. It's just money speech that Prime Minister's giving. But I say no check of money, vote for my unity. First of all, your people need their identity to be one race, from the same place, that make the same trip, on the same ship. So we must push one common intention, it's for a better life in the region, for we woman, and we children. That must be the ambition of the Caribbean and the Caribbean and the Caribbean. Papa. CARICOM is based in time. The whole Caribbean gone blind. If you don't know from where you're coming, then you can't plan where you're going. That's why some want to be communist, rather some want to be socialist, and one set a religion to add to the foolishness. Look, a man who don't know his history can't form no unity. Tell me, how could a man who don't know his roots form his own ideology? One race, from the same place, can make the same trip, on the same ship. So we must push one common intention, before a better life in the region. For we woman, and we children. That's what we the ambition of the Caribbean, the Caribbean. Federation done dead, and Caribs are going to bed. How come the cult of the Rastafarian? It's spreading through the Caribbean. They have Rastas now in Grenada, they have Rastas now in St. Lucia, but to run Caribs, yes, them getting pressure. If the Rastafari movement spreading and Caribs are dying slow, then it's something them Rastas done that the politicians don't know. Look at one race from the same place that make the same trip on the same ship. So they pushing one common intention, for a better life in the region, for the woman, and their children. That must be the ambition.
Yes, yes, yes. Yes, the voice of Leroy Khalid, the black man, the black stallion, Dr. Leroy Khalid. If David Rudder is the philosopher king of Calypso, I think the black stallion is the authentic working class voice of Calypso. He gave Calypso a kind of working class character. If the Rastafarian movement spreading, then it's something them Rastas know that the politicians don't know. Identity. He's arguing that national identity, regional identity, has to be the basis of nationhood. What is your identity? You know, we live in a Guyana, they're trying to tell me, get rid away identity, you're not black, you're Guyanese. So they want to take away your cultural identity and give you a civic identity. Guyana can disappear tomorrow, you know, Venezuela can overpower we and take away Guyana. Countries have disappeared. There is no longer Czechoslovakia, right? There's the Czech Republic, and there is this the Slavic part. Countries can disappear. Identities are permanent. So when people tell you, in order to be a Guyanese, you have to stop being Indian Guyanese or Amerindian Guyanese, they're talking nonsense. They're talking nonsense. Guyana is an experiment that is 57 years old. We have survived 57 years. There have been so many threats, but we have survived. And you know why we have survived? Because of identity. Identity. You know, you be you and me be me. That's the beauty of the damn thing self, as David Rudder say. So, yes, for me, my Guyanese-ness has to be grounded in something larger, something more spiritual, and something that I want to be identified with, or I want to identify with. There is a reason that when Serena and Venus, you know, win at lawn tennis, we don't have to understand the rules of lawn tennis. We don't. Most of us don't, but what? We identify with two black women. They're not Guyanese. They're not West Indian. They're black. And when you look at yourself, you say, but we got something in common. And even the Indian Guyanese becomes black when Serena wins. Identify. Doesn't have to be a Guyanese. You hear what Black Stallion singing about there? Caribbean unity. But why I play that calypso tonight is I said it must be the ambition of we women and we children. And I want party to talk about we women and we children tonight. On that Mahdia story. That Mahdia story. The safety of our children. And the fact that we have a young woman, a child, 15 years old, slapped with 19, and it's gonna be 20 murder charges. For what? For the failure. But let me don't get into it, because I have a guest tonight and I'm going to bring him on right away. Because what do I know? What do I know about systems? What do I know about systems? The man who would know about systems is with us, Mr. Paul Slowe. And we are starting here tonight with the assumption there was a systems breakdown. There's a system breakdown. So we're going to talk about that system breakdown there, from an expert who knows about systems and how they work. And then we're going to talk about this young man from a village there who apparently and allegedly aided and abetted Smalley to get away. And they captured him, but he's dead. And I am not endorsing what he is alleged to have done. I'm not endorsing no prison getaway. But on this program, I like to talk about a human being, because the human being is central, is primary, and is paramount. And the human being got rights, human rights. Whether that human being is a crook, a thief, a scoundrel, he or she still has human rights. And when we begin to disregard human rights, then the society crumbles. Because the basis of the society is the human being. So we can talk about that, the police story there again. Who better talk to us than Mr. Paul Slowe? You all know all his credentials. He's now a media celebrity. He stood between a government led by its president, which wanted to tell the police who to promote. It's a very important moment in our history, because the president was caught. And I'm sure there would have been political leaders before who did that, but they weren't caught. This one got caught. And he got caught because of Paul Slowe. Brother Paul, good night.
Good evening, Dr. Haynes. Good evening to all your viewers.
How are you?
I am fine, thanks. I'm fine.
Yes. Let's begin tonight and talk a little bit about what happened at Mahdia. We're getting 1,000 perspectives, and that is so we Caribbean people, we Guyanese people, you give us an issue, and we have all the diagnostics, all the solutions. That's part of what free speech is, but it's also part of the absence of trust in those in authority to tell us the right story. So we form our stories. But you are someone who has been part of this thing, because police is connected with safety and all of that stuff. The police and the fire service and all these things, in my estimation, they're wrapped up together. Do you agree that there was a systemic breakdown at Mahdia?
Of course, massive systemic breakdown. Not only a systemic breakdown, but a massive systemic breakdown. And this view is arrived at based on what is known to all members of the public, either what is released through the official channels or what is released by other persons, a massive systemic breakdown. And here we are referring to this fire at the Mahdia dormitory, which took the lives, I think now it's of 20 persons. And we learned that following the fire, and here we have to look at this thing holistically. There was a fire. It is alleged that one of the residents, one of the students, a 15-year-old student, started the fire for whatever reason. So there was a fire. There's no doubt about that, right? And then what was discovered is that after the fire, the children were trapped in this building, this dormitory, because all the windows were grilled and the doors, they said they had 5 doors, were padlocked, and therefore they could not have escaped. So it's a breakdown of the system, because we learned after that the fire service carried out inspections, and noted a plural, inspections, and flagged the grilled windows as a fire hazard. We also learned that apparently there was no smoke detector, no fire alarm, no fire extinguisher, nothing at all. And the question is, how can you have children, no less, anyone for that matter, but children no less, living in a building? The building, I understand, was built to accommodate about 60 persons. And you have no firefighting, no escape, nothing at all. So it is a breakdown of the system. Because, as I've said, first breakdown is that a building like that could be constructed with no the building code to deal with fire and all of that. Inspections are carried out according to the fire service, flag these things as fire hazard, and nothing is done. And you know, now it's Shaggy in the house. Blame is not me, it's not this ministry, and it's not this ministry and all of that. So yes, there was a massive breakdown in the system, and I am hopeful that all of those issues are going to be addressed. We are aware that the 15-year-old girl is charged with 19 counts of murder. And as you indicated in your intro, that is likely to go up to 20 because a 20th person died a few days ago. But again, you look at the old system, yeah, the girl might be culpable. I want to see how they're going to prove that. But what happened to the people who grilled the building and locked them in there? Those questions have to be answered as well.
Yes, and let me go to that question. I know you're a former policeman, and you've always made clear that you are a policeman, you are pro-police, you're anti-police excesses, but you've always made that point that you are a policeman. You've spent decades in service. What is the role of the police in a tragedy like this? Because there are various actors. There are several ministries, it seems: the Ministry of Education, the Ministry of Home Affairs, the Ministry of Regional Affairs, the Regional Democratic Council. So there are various government departments. And then you have the fire service. You have, I guess, the department that deals with counseling. You have the police involved in this. What is the role of the police as an actor whenever tragedy like this occurs?
Well, as you rightly said, I spent 37 years in the police force, and I'm pro-police. I am totally against corruption. I'm totally against incompetence, and that is what I speak out about. But I'm not against police. And as the role of the police, let's start first at the time of the fire. Mm-hmm. At the time of the fire, the role of the police would have been there to assist in the first instance in fighting the fire, and perhaps saving, assisting, rescuing. And once that is done, then the role of the police, you kick in a role of an investigatory role. So one would have expected that the first thing they will do after the fire, right, you're going to cordon that area, you're going to secure the area. Because remember, at the time of the fire and all the hustle and the bustle there, you cannot say definitively what is the cause of the fire. You would not have known at that time. However, the training should be in all fires like that. You have to assume the worst, that it's an arson. So therefore, it's a crime scene. You have to secure the crime scene for the investigators from the fire service, because in a fire, it's the fire service and the police will jointly conduct the investigation. The fire service will go with their expertise to tell you the cause of the fire. Police is going to be there to take statement, especially when it comes and it is said that, look, this thing was deliberately started. Then the police have to take statements from all of those persons there. So I was appalled when the very next day, that's the Monday, to see the crime scene not being protected to the extent that the Prime Minister and others are in the scene. They are walking and trampling the scene, contaminating evidence. So the role of the police is to investigate. They would have collected statements of all the parties, and here we're talking about statements from the survivors. We're talking statements from witnesses, statements from rescuers. All of those statements from family members, because you have to have statements from the family members to establish who the victims were and all of that. So the police have a massive task to investigate, to take statement in conjunction with and the investigation is in conjunction with the fire service. And then at the end of all of that, a report is submitted to the DPP with recommendations. And that is based on the statements. That is based on whatever evidence, because in addition to statements, police have to gather all the evidence that would have been found at the scene. All the evidence, recovered bodies, all of that. That is the role of the police in such a situation. So a thorough investigation, lots of statements, I can imagine dozens and dozens of statements to be taken, report to be compiled and submitted to the Director of Public Prosecutions for advice. So again, I was astonished. This fire occurred this Sunday, and by the Wednesday, the Thursday following, we are hearing that a file has been sent to the Director of Public Prosecutions for legal advice in this matter. That is unheard of in the history of policing in Guyana. And just over a week after, someone is charged with 19 counts of murder. And by definition, murder is the willful taking. Well, murder is the taking of a life of a human being by a human being with malice aforethought. That is what I was taught. Maybe it has changed now. With malice aforethought. That is what murder is. So again, file gone to the DPP, and just over a week, over a week thereafter, charges are filed. This matter, as we said, occurred on Sunday. I think it was the 21st, and Monday gone. Charges are filed, and I learned this morning, reading the news or reading a release from the Ministry of Home Affairs, they now get the assistance of some U.S. expert to go to the fire scene. So I was wanting to know what they are going for, because if it is that you have concluded, or not concluded, but you have conducted the investigation to the point where you can get advice to charge murder, then one would assume that investigation would have been well advanced. So that is what we have, but that is the role of the police. And of course, at some later stage, how the system works, I don't know if the police are going to do the prosecution, but you have that stage as well, because the person appeared in court, remanded until the 4th of July, I understand. So the prosecution, you'll have to present your case. In some cases, I suspect in this one that will be the case, where the DPP is going to either get someone from the DPP's chamber or farm out, employ some private person to prosecute the case. But basically, that is what the function of the police in a fire. Not only this fire, I mean, we are highlighting this because of the loss of 19 lives, but that is standard practice. And let me repeat for our viewers. At the time of the fire, you respond and you try to assist in saving lives and help the fire service in putting out the fire. Because remember, in the urban areas and the rural areas, not necessarily the interior areas, police are normally the first responders, because you have patrols out and you hear the fire. So it's a police patrol that will arrive on the scene first. So they are trained to get there and to assist, save lives, assist the fire service. Because I know from experience, especially in and around Georgetown, when there's a fire, a lot of people, public people come to assist in putting out the fire. But sometimes it gets to a point where they become an hindrance. When the fire service arrive, they become an hindrance. So the police will be there to make sure that all the assistance is given to the fire service so that they can do their work. Once that is done, once that fire has been extinguished, the place is cordoned to prevent unauthorized persons from going there. And I am saying this without any fear of successful contradiction. The Prime Minister was unauthorized to be there. He's not a fireman. He's not a policeman. He's not an investigator. He had no need. And it's just a photo opportunity. And the thing that is galling me, that he could have been outside the scene. and still get his photos. But these people are so, I don't know how to put it, they're just so anxious to this photo opportunity to show that they're doing something. But you know, in doing that, people who know better, these things go all over the world, people know better, are laughing at us. How is it that this man who is the prime minister is in this fire scene within 24 hours? And I must say to them, that is not surprising because, you know, I have colleagues all over the law enforcement world. And sometimes they ask these things of me. How can that be? And I say, well, Ghana is a different place. And I remind our viewers that following the breakdown fire, the very next day, the breakdown fire took place a Saturday, and the Sunday morning, heavy machinery were there at the scene, moving the debris. And then after the debris is being moved, the president is said that they're going to get outside help to investigate. Investigate what? You don't destroy the evidence, you move the evidence. And I said at that time, maybe you're a Calypso man. I follow you and I know you know this Calypso. What is his name? Nello. King Lion. Yes. When he said, we're coming down to the end, when he said, look, my tail is the best, Rice is his name. I cut him cloth, making suit is his game. The man said, don't show me the man, my tail is class. Just show me the corner where the fella passed, and he gonna make a suit. And I made a joke and I said, well, maybe you don't have to get debris and all of that to determine the cause of this fire. Just show these people the scene, and they're going to be able to tell you the cause of the fire.
Yes, Paul Slowe tonight really walking us through the role of the police, because like I said, there are several actors at play whenever you have something like a big fire. And so I wanted to get Mr. Slowe here to tell us what is the role of the police. And by telling us what's the role of the police, he's also telling us what's the role of others, including what's the role of the prime minister. It's not to be there at the scene. You know, I was on the phone just now, and I'm not usually disrespectful to my guests and to the audience, but it was AUC Kwayano who called me there just now. He didn't know I was on the show. And about a year ago, after the breakdown fire, he called me and he said, you know, there's something called a Fire Act. And he asked me to find in the Constitution for him. And we went through it together. And I had not known that the Constitution actually dealt with fire. And then it made sense. We live in a country with plenty of wooden buildings.
Correct.
So we are sitting up for fire. So the rules of the country have to deal with fire. And he wrote a letter, I think, over the last couple of days, pointing out about we have the way we deal with fire in the Constitution. And Kwayana was saying in that letter, and he just said to me there, that they're not perfect rules, but they are there. Are you aware of that part of the Constitution, Mr. Slowe? And well, if so,
actually, no, I'm not aware with that. I know the law. I know there's an act dealing with the role of the fire service and all of that, but I was not aware that there's a constitutional provision to deal with fire. But what you're saying makes sense. I mean, lots of wooden buildings in Guyana. It's only in recent times you have concrete structure and so, because even back when you had concrete structure, recall those two level buildings, the bottom was concrete and most times the top was still wood. So you still have to have that. And let me say that even when you don't have that amount of wood, because in certain places like the US and so on, they don't have wooden buildings, they have concrete buildings, and therefore you have to equip your fire service and your responders to deal with that. Right?
Yes. And welcome all of you to Politics 101. You all are out in your numbers tonight. And I always say, some people would say, well, a fire is not a sexy thing. So you won't have people want to listen what is said about fire. But every day, every night on this program and other programs, you all put this lie that we have to break down thing for people, and that people not interested in certain things. You all are proving that to be a lie. Big numbers tonight. Keep them coming. Spread the link. Let them know that Politics 101 is on. And we're not here dividing the country. We're here talking sense. and talking about people's business, talking about something that has taken 20 lives. 20 lives in a population of 750,000 is plenty people. Plenty people to die in one incident. And as we come on here tonight, we hear about another fire in another part of the interior. Something is wrong. I said, Mr. Slowe, that you are a policeman. And therefore, the rule of law is important for you. It should be important for all of us, but as a policeman and someone who has been in the leadership of our police force, it is very important. But these charges against this 15-year-old child may satisfy the rule of law, but doesn't it run against something bigger? Does it run against the human spirit? I don't know. I'm grappling. For me, this child must be made aware that she did something that has had and that has tremendous consequences. But I don't know that in a civilized society in 2021, charging a 15-year-old child in the circumstances and given what we know was perhaps the best thing. And I'm asking you this question, fully conscious that for you, first and foremost, if someone commits an offense, the law must take its course. But I'm still going to ask you the question. Do you think charging that 15-year-old child?
I mean, there's a fair question. And I think I read somewhere this afternoon, the DPP, that the Director of Public Prosecutions made a statement basically saying that they treat all persons alike. So they were saying the fact that it's a 15-year-old child caused this fire, alleged to have caused this fire in such circumstances, then the law should apply. I have no issue with that. My issue is the rush to to do this. That is the indecent haste. That is my issue. Breakneck speed, just about a week. And I'm saying, no way the Guyana police force and the system that we operate in is that efficient to have conducted a proper and thorough investigation in about 7 days, 7 days and 2 days when the post are paid before the court. But about 4 days after we ordered the file in this matter was sent to the Director of Public Prosecutions for legal advice. And I'm saying no way that investigation could have been properly done, because someone reminded me yesterday on my show that, look, even before you got the DNA results from those remains that were sent overseas, charges were filed, or at least legal advice was sought. So I am saying that there is breakneck speed. And then one has to question the motive. Why was it the need to rush to place this child before the court in such, as we would say in Ghanaian labor time? And one can only surmise that it was to try to quell the public pressure or to deflect from the issues relating to the grilling of the building and the like, the failure to implement recommendations from the fire service and all of that. So I think that it's a deflection. The rush to charge is a deflection. And I am waiting to see, again, this is my law enforcement background comes in here, because statements would have been taken. The survivors were, except for the daughter mother, were all juveniles. The law prescribes how statements should be taken from juveniles, whether they are witnesses, whether they are victims, or whether they are accused persons. The law says how those statements, and the Juvenile Act I'm referring to specifically, how those statements should be taken. And therefore, I want to see, I am waiting to see what the evidence will be, because a significant aspect too, I mentioned again yesterday, is that when the matter came up on Monday there before the magistrate, the matter is put down to July 4th. Some people report the 4th, some say the 5th, but it is put down to either July 4th or 5th. And here it is put down on the next date for statements and disclosure. Significant. Yeah. So what they're saying there is that when you come up on the 4th of or the 5th of July, the prosecution should provide the defense. And the defense team, I'm glad to see, is headed by Attorney Dexter Todd, very competent attorney. So the defense team is expected to present the attorney with all the statements. In other words, disclosure time. Let's see what your case is so they can build the defense. So I'm waiting, and I am sure, if I were a betting man, I would wager big that when the matter comes up on the 4th or 5th of July, they are not going to be ready to present statements, and which again supports the fact that this was a rush, breakneck speed to make sure that you can say, oh, the child is charged, and all over the world. I saw on, I think yesterday afternoon, on Times Square, the busiest crossroad in the world, the ticker got child charged as an adult in the damn fire. They said that the child charged as an adult. I don't know that that is true, but they would have gotten that from somewhere, and that is what we have. So I'm saying, yes, you commit a crime, then you must face the music, right? But we have to understand that this is a juvenile. And my training is that when you're dealing with juveniles, you deal with juvenile differently. The DPP actually admitted that juveniles are dealt with differently. Because in dealing with juvenile in the system, it has to be to rehabilitate. It has to be to rehabilitate. So I don't know, and you don't wait if you're going to try to rehabilitate until the person is convicted. You have to start if you get the evidence that, look, this is the person, and they're saying, the fact that they charge, they're saying that they have the evidence that this is the person responsible. You have to treat with that, the human thing. I mean, can you imagine the child in some juvenile facility in Georgetown? I suspect our parents or relatives are hundreds of miles away, somewhere in the interior. So it's not only that she's confined to a juvenile facility in Georgetown, but she's not going to get visit from people who she is familiar with. So that is additional stress on a 15-year-old. Say whatever you want. Say whatever you want. It's at the end of the day, it's a 15-year-old child accused of committing 19 and perhaps later 20 murders. And let me say this, because the DPP and the police and all of these people tell you about murders, the 19 or the 20 murders. But in that whole scenario, you had people who were injured. You had people who were burnt. One patient, we understand, is still in a serious condition in Georgetown Hospital. Some who survived, you saw them parading one of the victims at Umanayana at some vigil with her hand in some chaos or strap. All of those persons, offenses would have been committed against all of them. So I am waiting to hear when they're going to institute the other charges. I am waiting. But again, because of this rush to no doubt satisfy public concerns, and when we talk about this murder charge, let me talk about it a little bit more. You remember Orin Boston? Orin Boston was shot in his bed.
Yes.
While he was lying next to his wife. And it took protest after protest on the Essequibo coast. And weeks before a charge of manslaughter. Let me repeat that. It took protest on the Essequibo coast, blocking of the road. Prime Minister, not the Prime Minister, sorry, Overfairs Minister and all of those people went there and promised to have the matter properly investigated. It took protest. And at the end, the person was accused, the policeman was charged with manslaughter. Not murder, as some people are clamoring for, charged with manslaughter. So one has to question how these decisions are arrived at. I would have thought the decisions would have been evidence-based, based on the evidence and based on the law. As I said, murder, malice aforethought. But I have seen in many cases where the DPP just charged and said, well, when it gets to the court, because the court will decide if it gets to that stage. So if you're charged with murder, if it gets to the trial, you can be found not guilty of murder, but guilty of manslaughter. So I suspect that is what they're taking the lazy way out. So you don't want to charge perhaps with manslaughter or anything else. You're charged with murder, and if it gets to trial and there's no evidence about the premeditation, then the jury might very well find you guilty for manslaughter. So that is what we have.
Yes, and you certainly preempted a question there by a former police woman who's asking whether the child confess to the crime. Therefore, she's saying she's asking if the child confessed to the crime, or she hasn't confessed to the crime. Why is the haste? How do you know that she's guilty? You know. But I like the comparison you made with it or in Boston. It took them weeks to bring a murder charge.
A manslaughter charge.
A manslaughter
charge.
And within days, here are murder charges against a child.
With breakneck speed, to use the Attorney General's phrase, with breakneck speed.
Wow. Over Guyana. Welcome all of you. Welcome of all of you. Tonight is a big night. I like the numbers. I like the numbers every night. But some nights, it's going to be big. It's going to be big because of the issue that we are discussing, and sometimes because of the guests. And we try to bring guests on who are going to add something to the conversation that we might not be able to figure out ourselves, or we probably figure it out but couldn't explain it. And certainly I have learned a few things here tonight already from this conversation with Mr. Paul Slowe. Mr. Slowe, let's shift gear.
All a while.
Yes, go ahead. Yeah.
In relation to the question you asked a while ago about whether this young lady confessed, whether she has given a statement. Again, that is a lot. You have a lot of issues there, because let's assume, for argument's sake, that she confessed. There is something in investigation of crime called the judge's rules. The judge's rules are clear that a confession statement has to be taken under certain strict conditions. And even when it's a juvenile, it's even worse. Parent, guardian got to be there. The person has to be told of the right to refuse to make any written statement, unless written or oral, unless they wish to do so. You have to talk about the conditions that are present at the time. So, and that is why, again, you have a lot of people who say the police will say they confess, but when you get to the court, it can't go any further. Those statements are not admitted because they were not taken under the stipulated conditions of the judge's rule. And I see the thing there about confession, state of mind, very important.
Yeah.
Very important. That child would have been interrogated. The question is, was that interrogation done in keeping with judge's rule and the Juvenile Protection Act? Those are questions to be asked. And if the confession wasn't done under those conditions, it ain't going no place. The matter is not going to go any place, because confession. And I saw again with the fire you reported today, I just read that the persons confess. That is the thing now, people confess. Yes. And therefore, once you confess, there is nothing else. And I always like to mention, for the benefit of viewers, there was I don't know if you remember, years ago, a man in either the Maikoni or the Michael Creek was murdered. One of these what we call felony murder. They went to rob him and they kill him. Something Passad, Benny Passad or Boni Passad, something like that. I think 4 or 5 men were arrested, charged. They all gave confession statements. The investigator at that time was Ulrich London, famous detective.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Ulrich investigated that matter. And when the matter got before the judge and jury, those statements were said not to be given free and voluntarily. So all the confession statements in that murder charge were thrown out in the High Court. Notwithstanding that, all of those men were convicted of murder, sentenced to death, and subsequently swung from the gallows. I am saying that to say that the investigation went beyond the confession statement. Yeah. You don't just you have to get other evidence, so just in case the confession statement goes out, the matter can still stand. We would have seen in recent times, once a confession statement is thrown out, there goes the matter. So I want to make that point that even if the person said, somebody says Marconi Creek here,
Yes.
so even if that person gave a statement, the question is, was the statement given in keeping with the judge's rules? That is a big question. And I want to suggest, based on what has been released, that they're going to have difficulty with that.
Boy. Hammer that. I know you come here tonight to make trouble on the program, but you see how you can be of service. Hammer that is one of what you call them, trolls or whatever. They come and make trouble. And he say is Marconi.
Yeah, but you know, he's confirming that I'm not telling a tale.
You're not telling a tale.
He's confirming that what I'm saying is true.
It's true. It's true. You know, they send these persons to come on here and make trouble, and they always tell them seize the opportunity to learn something. Mr. Slowe, let's turn our attention to the other big story, and that is the story of the escape from the prison. And there are a couple of things. The charging of people, including the person in charge of the prison. That's one. I want your comment on that, on who were charged and why they were charged. I think it's the first time I'm hearing of a prison escape and the prison officer in charge of the prison actually going before the court. And I was asking, was he charged because he has to take responsibility as head of the prison, or was he charged because they're saying he had something to do with the escape? And I couldn't make it out. Here's a layman asking these questions. Talk to us about that.
Well, let me answer first. He's charged because what they have it here, you know, they say, let me read it. I don't want to misquote or mislead anyone, including your troll and all of these people. They say that he's charged to conspiring to facilitate the escape of death row prisoner Royden Williams, known as Smalley. So he's charged with conspiring. So it's not a case where, according to the charge that is filed against these 6 persons, including the man who was in charge of the Mazruni prison, it's not a case where they say there was dereliction of duty. They're saying that he conspired with these persons to facilitate. That's the word they use.
Yes.
To facilitate. And let me tell you, the viewers, let me talk about conspiracy. From the time when this matter, they said these persons were under arrest and all of that, I said, well, all right, perhaps dereliction of duty, as we call it, slackness on somebody's part, permitted this man to escape. But when I saw this conspiracy, I said, take it regular. Because I experienced, I can't discuss it, but myself and Conway and all this before the court on a conspiracy to defraud charge. And I know that no basis for this charge. So when I say conspiracy, because what is a conspiracy by definition? A conspiracy, also known as a plot, you say, is a secret plan or agreement between people called conspirators or co-conspirators for an unlawful act or harmful purpose. This is an agreement by 2 or more persons to commit a crime or rather wrongful act. So basically, what the state is saying, that these 6 persons were charged, the 4 prison officers, the Venezuelan woman, and this businessman, they say from Puerto Rico or somewhere there, they are alleging that they conspire. In other words, at some stage, they exchange a talk, either over the phone or directly, to say, look, we can do something to make this man escape. That is what they are saying.
Yeah.
And you know, I find that very, very difficult to understand. I don't know any one of the persons. I don't know the prison officers. Mr. Hopkins, I think his name is. I don't know him. I have no recollection of ever interacting with him. I don't know any one of the others. So I am not advancing any case for anyone here. But I said, when I hear this conspiracy thing, I said something wrong. And then when I read in the news that a man in charge of the Missouri prison, Mr. Hopkinson, this man retired at the age of 55 4 years ago. he was re-employed in the system.
Yes,
He was re-employed in the system. And you want to tell me you want me? I would never believe that, given what I've just said, that this man is going to conspire with businessmen and Venezuelan women and other prison officers to aid the escape of perhaps the most dangerous criminal in Guyana, a mass murderer.
Yeah.
And as we speak, we understand the news is that sometime this afternoon, he and another one of his accomplices was shot and killed. Again, that is the news. So those who might not have heard it, that is. And I say again, I am supporting no criminal. I am supporting no criminal. But there's something that is called the rule of law.
Yeah.
And I said yesterday, and I am repeating it here for emphasis, that policemen on duty are going to be confronted with situation where they have to use lethal force. In other words, they have to shoot and kill people. The prevailing conditions will determine whether it is justified or not. So I'm not here advocating, say, police must shoot and kill people. A man pull a gun on the police and shoot at the police. Police have a right to return fire. And if he dies, so be it. You have to protect yourself. The conditions, the rules say that you're justified in doing so. So let me set that straight from the outset. But then it's the narrative that is put out there by the authorities. The narrative. I listened to a press conference by the Minister of Home Affairs and the Acting Director of Prison 2 Saturdays ago. To hear them and try to explain, that is the day I think after the escape. They try to explain what actually transpired. And I did my little research. I don't like to come and just run my mouth. And I discovered that the Prison Act, I think it's chapter 45 or section 45 of the Prison Act, makes it clear that in order, well, it says that once you're a condemned prisoner, as Royden Williams was, he can only be visited, the only people who can interact with him are prison staff,
yes,
the medical people at the prison, and somebody, a preacher or somebody from the religious denomination that this person subscribes to. Only those persons. Any other person must get a written permission from the director of prison. That is what was said. Up to now, I have not heard them saying whether this Venezuelan visitor who said that she is in the country illegally and she provides service, that is what she said, she provides service. Up to now, I have not heard that, look, whether she got permission as stipulated by the law to go and visit this condemned prisoner. They're not saying that. So they said that, look, and it is clear from all that transpired. It is clear from all that transpired, the fact that this man was taken from wherever he was to meet this visitor, and according to them, on the way back, they were ambushed and the man was made to escape. As an old policeman with a lot of experience, I formed the opinion, based on what they have said, that the visit and everything was part of this plot to free this man. This is not something just happened that this visit was done and these men were there in this boat with assault rifles. I think it was something that was well orchestrated. And the person escaped. Another thing that I found strange, that in the release, the police said that one of the accomplices, one of the persons who went there to free Williams, was known to the police. They said he was known to the police. I saw them put picture and all thing. Now that he's dead, they put picture. And again, I ask the question, if this man is known to the police, why did you not issue a wanted bulletin to alert the public who this man was? So in case he's seen in any area, people can inform the police, oh, this man where you have on a wanted bulletin is seen in such and such. That wasn't done. That was not done. And we all know that in recent times, the police rush to issue wanted bulletins, even though they know where the persons live, even though they know the names of those persons, they issue wanted bulletins without even making any effort to contact those persons. That is known. So I found it strange that you're saying in your release that one of the suspects is known to the police. He is known to the police. Yet still, you did not take what I would have thought to be a logical step to issue a bullet, or at least to put his photographs out there to encourage the public to assist you in the apprehension of this person. So a lot of strange things over this matter, a lot of strange stuff occurred. So again, what is the culpability of those persons who either issued this pass, because I am assuming here that this pass was issued, and if the pass was not issued, it's more problems. It's not only a conspiracy now, it's a violation of the Prison Act. So we have a lot of things, and I have a suspicion now, I hope I am wrong, that the man or the people who were involved with this escape are now dead. 6 persons are charged for conspiracy. That might be the end of it. So nobody gonna delve in to make sure. Because remember, this is not the first time this man escaped, you know. This is not the first time he escaped. And these are the things that worry people coming back to the fire. This is not the first school fire. I've had so many school fires. And you know, these things are mind-boggling. And I'm saying that these things can happen this way, continue to happen, because of incompetence and corruption. The name of my program. Incompetence and corruption. That is why these things can happen.
Yeah. Talk to us about the young man that was killed. The accomplice, Howard.
Yeah.
Yes. Talk to us about that, because people have so many questions.
Well, I have a lot of questions too. And you know, the whole story, the whole thing is again the police issue a version. And I'm saying that the mistake they would normally make when they issue these things, they don't, as you are of that age and that vintage where, you know, we used to say Marie. You know, you started with Marie. So people are alerted that you're coming to tell a tale or a story, as we would say. Now, according to the police again, and I was not there, so I don't know what transpired. I am going on based on what the police and those who are aligned to the police have put out there in the public sphere. They say that the first thing that I learned about this matter, and that is, I'm not sure again I'm in the correct chronological order. This is how I became aware of it. I think it was Sunday. They said there was a shootout with the police and this man who they said aided in the escape. Shootout, I say, all right, shootout is not something new. But then reading further, they say that no firearm, the man was killed and no firearm was recovered. I said, what? You got a shootout with one man and the police. The man is killed, no firearm is recovered. Well, then tell me that this shootout took place near some river where the firearm that the man had might have fallen overboard and you can't recover it. Or the shootout took place between the police and a set of people, and those who survive and escape might have picked up this firearm and go away with it. But when I see it was one man with this shootout, I said, nah, thing not regular. Something is wrong there. And then a photograph appears with this man being arrested, apprehended. He is there lying on his back. His hands appear to be restrained behind his back. Someone has a crack, someone wearing a crack on his right foot, because I can tell you right foot because I examined the thing in great detail. His right foot is resting on the torso of this man. Another individual appears to be nearby because you can see a boot. They can't swear that it's an individual, again, at bringing him in police training, because it can be just a boot there with no foot inside. But that is there, evident. The man was clearly alive. The man was clearly alive. And then there's this fanciful story that this man was now being escorted on the all-terrain vehicle. Don't know where they were taking him. They didn't say that. He was escorted on an all-terrain, ATV all-terrain vehicle. And during that process, he snatched an assault rifle, let's say AK-47, they were very specific, from the lap of the person who was there. He jumped off of this ATV. He then accounted them. He then attempted to crank. Now, cranking is not police language and military language. We will say you attempt to cock the fire. But they say you attempt to crank. This is them civilian where they employ They're civilian language. They say you attempted to crank the weapon. Yeah, crank the weapon. And in that process, one of the rounds there discharged several rounds from an AK-47. They say one struck him. He fell into a pool of water and continued to attempt to crank this assault rifle. He attempted, when he was wounded, and then somebody shot him with a pistol, and he died. I said, body by Murray. Because the story is not logical. The man is seen with his hands restrained. I can't say handcuffed because he hasn't seen no handcuff. But it is clear that his hands were behind his back. And the posture that he was in conveys the impression that he was restrained. So you want to tell me at some stage this man with the hand behind the back able to snatch this weapon and did all that they claim that he did? And if it is that you're going to tell me that his hands were not behind his back, at what stage and for what reason the hands became freed in such a way that this incident could have taken place in the manner that you described it taking place? This thing ain't making no sense. This thing ain't making no sense. And then later on, there's another picture of a blurred picture of I suspect that appeared to be the deceased person lying there near a camp. The camp has at least one cot. And on that cot, there are two assault rifles with the body lying somewhere nearby. So maybe they say after the shooting, they took him there. I don't know. Yeah, but the story that is told by the police, again, I say, I was not there. I was not there. I am only going by what they are saying. And I'm saying that what they are saying does not add up. Somebody said the Matson. The story ain't making no sense. Yeah. And people say, I see somebody comment, we big, but we ain't stupid. Nobody can. Look, I am saying, I don't know what took place there. I don't know what took place. But I'm saying again, that based on what they have said, it strains credibility. It ain't making no sense. It makes no sense. And then, the next thing too that occurred to me is that they said that he was one of the accomplices and of this escape. But they did say at the time of the escape that the two accomplices were armed with assault rifles. They said they were two AK-47s and one AR-style firearm. Yet still, when they found this man, they say he had in our sack, he had amok, he had malaria tablet, he had cook-up rice seasoning. So all of these things, I want to know if those things are prohibited items now. Yeah. It would appear as though, so I said, you put these things in the release, so what purpose? And I say again, because they have civilians there running the thing, and they tell a lot of crap. I was trained as a senior officer to interact with the media and to give media releases. Trained at the FBI Academy by people from CNN and at the Police Staff College in the UK by people from BBC. And we were taught not to give people the facts. This is what took place. There are some things you might not be at liberty to say, but they don't tell the facts. They try to write a story, a long, fancy story. And in doing that, they talk a lot of nonsense, which comes back to haunt them. They have to then retract and lose whatever little credibility they have, because no one believes that the police cooperation unit or when a senior police officer makes a statement, it is credible, which is worrying. You have to be in a position where you are so straightforward and shoot from the hip that when you tell people a story as a senior police officer, it must be believable. It must be believable. And that is what during my career I lived by. Many of the journalists now practicing now will tell you. They call me for something happen and I will tell them, look, I can't tell you this part or I can't tell you that part, but this is what we know so far. And I established that relationship and they respected that. I'm talking about journalists. I'm not talking about these fly-by-night people who post all sort of crap on social media and call themselves journalists. I am telling you, journalists that would interact, and I said, this is what happened, but you cannot, we are not in a position to release this, and I asked you not to release this. I'm telling you this in confidence not to release. The next thing that they do, which erodes the confidence and credibility, they single out certain people to pass on the information to. We would have seen not so long ago with the Mars murder.
Yes.
A particular newscast is given a caution statement, a confession that is made by the suspect. And the newscast, the same newscast, said that they saw a statement from the man's wife which contradicts what she said publicly. So where are we going? How do you give the confession, the video confession of a suspect to a news outlet? This is unheard of any part in the world. But as we said, Guyana is a different place, not a real place. It's a civilized plantation. So all of these things can happen. And when these things happen, let me understand it clearly. It is not the individuals who will suffer. The image of the entire organization. And if you have a bad image, that is one of the worst things for law enforcement and police, because nobody cooperates with you. Nobody will tell you anything because they don't believe you. They don't believe you have credibility. They don't believe that you will treat the information with the type of confidence or confidentiality it deserves.
Mr. Paul Slowe tonight walking us through these thorny issues, and you all out in big number. I think we're going to beat Sheriff tonight. You're going to buy me a beer. Because I think I'm beating you with numbers tonight. I never see numbers big like this. You all really come on. It's good.
I was trying to say it's fast. It's fast.
Oh my Paul, you know, I can't let you go without asking you to deal. I pick up the paper a couple of days ago. Some lady pulling down a PPP poster at Lancaster there in the quarantine, and the police calling, and I don't know whether she was charged, but what's going on? I remember when I was a young political activist, when the PNC put up the poster in Buxton, so within an hour, we guys they take down the poster. And it was a running thing among us as politics. No police was, and this was under the so-called dictator Burnham. Paul, tell me what happened in the country, man.
What has happened, to put it in simple language, the police force has been so weaponized by the current administration that anything they tell them to do, they do. And just don't leave it at the things being pulled down. Because I know during the campaigning time and so on, it happens all over. It happens where things, and if you know the persons, they are warned to desist from doing so, and the like. But not only that, people now calling people false name, calling them out slave, and calling them switch. And the police is weaponized to arrest them. And I said yesterday that you would know that going up in the country, is everybody get a false name? Is everybody get a false name? I telling them I grew up in BV, and the most famous false name in BV was Ezekiah. And the reason why it was the most famous false name, because that was the man's correct name. His name was Ezekiah, but if you little boy and you say Ezekiah, that becomes his false name. You got to run, right? So we got fun from that. And as a policeman, let me tell you the correct action in such a case. The person makes a report to the police station that a person called you a false name. So we would normally say in official language, he's called a name other than his own, right? That is what false name is. He's called a name other than his own. An occurrence is made, and you get that person who is alleged to have called him or a name other than their own, and they are warned to desist from such behavior. You enter into the record that this person was arrested. They were told of the allegation and warned to desist calling the person a switch or desist from calling the person a house slave. And the person is warned and sent away. Now, if the person continues and you have to bring a charge based on a statement from the person who is alleged to have called the false name, Then they are charged for provoking breach of the peace. They act in a manner likely to provoke a breach of the peace. In other words, we're saying that because you call the person a false name, the person can get a little violent, they can get fight, and so on. And that is a minor offense. A minor offense. But the police that you have now, either they don't know, and I don't want to believe that they don't know because they have a lot of liars and so on in the midst now.
Yes.
They have people who they claim to be lawyers, people doing law, those who weren't admitted to the bar, a lot of people doing law at UG. And at some stage, somebody got to know this. But what has happened is that once the politicians tell them to do that, that is what they do. The politicians tell them, in this case, Chase Green make a report that, Chase Green now is on the PDP list. So in order to intimidate and perhaps even to satisfy Chase Green, arrest and charge. The same thing I understand with Pilgrim and Bobby's arrest, but that is not the correct police action. I don't care what they say. That is not the correct police action. The action, as I know it, as I said before, you warn the person to desist from such behavior. And in most cases, the person can stop. In most cases, the person is going to stop pulling down the thing and so on. Again, the arrest. And that is one of the big problems now with the police too. Let me tell you. And this is for the people listening at police and all of them, they're going to hear it. You do not rush to arrest people unless and until you have a statement from the complainant that establishes an offense. This is something that they're doing wrong. So if Chase Green made a report that somebody called her or slave or switch, she ought to be made to give a statement, a written statement, not a word about oral statement. You take the occurrence and she is made to either submit her own statement or you sit her down and you take a statement from her to establish the offense. And once the offense has been established in writing, then and only then you proceed with other steps. But what's going on now for the time? I am sure with the thing in pulling down of the flag, they rush to arrest, they didn't even get no statement from somebody. So who is the victim?
Yeah.
Who is the victim? As we say, who is the virtual complainant? And it's part of the weaponization. And let me tell you further. They can continue to do these things because they have consequences. They operate with impunity. People are afraid to take action against them, and they continue to do so. We saw not so long ago, the thing has gotten so bad, an attorney at law advised her client to remain silent at Soku, and for that she was arrested. Just think about it. And the senior counsel, Juman Yassim, made the statement at the time that if that is happening in broad daylight with an attorney, you could imagine what happens in the darkness of the night with the ordinary person. And let me tell you this, because I know they're going to say, well, I've been in the system. Yes. And no doubt there were violations. But I can tell you we had systems to deal with it. But you have now in the force a total breakdown of the disciplinary procedure and the disciplinary system. So anything goes, any and everything goes, and a complaint is made, and nothing happens. They will tell you that the Office of Professional Responsibility, OPR, will investigate. But I have evidence that even when OPR investigate, even when the complaints authority, when complaints are made to the complaints authority, and they say take certain disciplinary action, even when files go to the DPP and the DPP recommends disciplinary action against rank, nothing is done. It is business as usual, nothing. I have evidence to support that. I am coming in just to talk. I have evidence.
Mr. Paul Slowe here tonight, walking us through, oh God, the atrocities, the atrocities, the atrocities, the atrocities in our country. It's unspeakable. Paul, any closing remarks? Closing thoughts?
Well, again, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity. I take every single opportunity I get to try to educate the public and to let them know what is going on. I know a lot of people, especially people who are in the government and who are supportive of the government, are uncomfortable But if the truth, I've said that if the truth makes you uncomfortable, that is on you. That is not me. So if by telling the truth you become uncomfortable, that is not anything to do with me. And I will continue to speak the truth. And I have repeatedly challenged them to dispute or to debunk anything that I have said. And they haven't done so as yet. They haven't done so as yet. So I'm still waiting, and I know they're going to get that opportunity, because when I speak, and my colleague on my program, Mr. Conway, speak, we talk about things that we know of, we think that we have evidence to support. So I want to close by telling the viewers to make sure that you are aware of what is going on. Make sure that you're aware. A lot of the things people tell you, not the truth. They just come and they do a lot of spin, a lot of propaganda. Be sensible. Read through the lines. Again, with this shooting of this man, again, let me say, I don't condone criminal activity of criminals. I spent 37 years going after criminals and all of that. So I can't change now. That is in my DNA. But I am saying there's something called the rule of law. And the rule of law must be followed. I said earlier, and I'm saying it again, the policemen are going to find themselves in a situation where the use of deadly force is justified. Don't let me mix matter with that. The use of deadly force will be justified. In other words, you can take your gun and you can shoot, and if someone dies, so be it. Inquiry or coroner's inquest, something like that is held, but you're justified in using the force. But in the story, the circumstances will vindicate you. But this Nancy story we heard here with this man cannot be tolerated and condoned. And on my social media page, I think last night I republished something. I don't have it verbatim here, but you know the story. They say they came for the socialists or they came for the Jew, but you know that poem.
Yes. And then they came for me.
Then they came for me, and there was no one else to represent me. And the point there is that you have got to speak up and speak out. So thank you again, Dr. Hines, for the opportunity to be on this program this evening to share some thoughts with you and your viewers.
Thank you very much, my brother.
And just to say that once you beat Sherrod tonight, you're going to owe me a drink.
Yes. I call him tonight and tell him he got to buy me a beer, and I don't know if you just drink, but he got to buy you even if it's a soft drink, because I think we beat you tonight.
Well, let me put people on notice, I do drink.
Okay, all right.
The only thing that I don't drink is cheap liquor.
Thank you, my brother. Thank you, Paul Slowe. Always informative, always, erudite, but, doing it in a way that he gets you interested in these seemingly complex legal slash police law enforcement issue. And I'm so glad that so many of you came out tonight, because I think this is has been a very, very important program. A very, very important program. Thank you all so much. I'll see you all tomorrow night. Tomorrow night is what, Friday night? Who am I having on tomorrow night? It doesn't come to me right away. But I'll see you all tomorrow night. And I just want to say, without you, there is no program. There could be no Paul Slowe talking about what he's talking tonight if people are not listening. And if people are not here, even the trolls, as we saw tonight, were themselves part of the learning here tonight. I love you all, always, always, forever.